Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I'm James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We are, of course, a Blue Wire podcast brought to you by Underdog Fantasy Sports. Again, we are joined by KCRA 3's Sean Cunningham. What's going on?
Oh, nothing much. I'm literally counting the days down to my yearly annual music festival that becomes my favorite thing in the world. Bottle Rock in Napa. Be there all 3 days. I cannot wait. And I feel it's like senioritis maybe a little bit because, summer is kind of here. I think we're going to have triple digits in like 10 days, something like that.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, I can't wait. So right as it gets to triple digits, that's when I head to Napa for the festival.
That sounds gross. Of course,
won't be bad there.
We are also joined by Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
I am doing well. Nothing all too special on my end. Enjoyed a fun, hectic day of basketball yesterday, I guess. Still get a little bit of the juices flowing with the draft lottery and Celtics' unfortunate situation with Tatum at the end there, I think has potential dominoes league-wide on what could sort of happen with their team. And so nothing too crazy. Back home from SoCal. I've been for a little while and enjoying off season a little bit, I guess, for the most part.
Can I just say you look like you've aged like 3, maybe 4 years?
The hair's growing a little. We're trying something new. We're at like the weird in between still. I don't know what to do with it, but I just know I'm letting it grow.
It just hit me. You know what he looks like? He looks like Mr. Beast.
That's crazy.
Like. He looks like Mr. Beast.
What is Mr. Beast?
Mr. Beast is a dude who gives money away on the internet all the time.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I know that.
I will not be giving money away. He was at All-Star, Sean.
Yes, he's at All-Star. But so I don't know a damn thing about wrestling these days. I mean, I'll hear a couple names, and of course, if The Rock popped up or John Cena or something like that, I'd know who they are. But I thought that you're talking about like a wrestler.
No, not talking about a wrestler.
I don't think I have that look.
But no, not at all. Not at all. All right, welcome in. We are doing a live show here. We also, just so you know, it's game on. Like it's time to have a drink. We are in the off season. Oh, podcast candles. See, I've matched your podcast.
Oh,
wow!
Did you see the message on Brendan's candle?
We've been over this.
This is my podcast candle. Didn't somebody give you that?
Yes.
A Kings Beat fan?
Yeah, we could say that.
All right, or just a Brenden Nunes fan that knew you had a podcast.
Yeah, one of the same.
I didn't get the gift.
No, you didn't. Do something to deserve it.
It's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year long, Clark. Brenden has no idea. Club? That Jelly Month Club. God.
I did finish Severance, by the way, and that was ridiculously good. I would not give spoilers, but I love stuff like that keeps you on the edge of your seat. I was all about it.
Do you?
Right. And I think I'm going to watch White Lotus.
There you go. All 3
seasons. Have you watched any?
No.
Oh, my goodness. Well, like, for those that watch White Lotus, I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but the fact that Gary/Greg.
Hold on, careful. I already know what you're going down. You're about to. You're like, I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to do this.
No. That Gary/Greg, does everyone know if you've watched White Lotus, is Uncle Rico?
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So Uncle Rico.
Yeah. You know who Uncle Rico is?
Yeah, could throw a ball over those mountains.
Yeah. Okay, well, he does not look like Uncle Rico anymore.
Gotcha.
Certainly doesn't have the hair that Uncle Rico had.
You like that movie?
Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it the first time, maybe twice. It's got some great one-liners that I repeat all the time. Like, get your own thoughts, Todd. Yeah.
That's a good part.
Sean clearly does not like the movie.
It's not that I don't like it. I think it gets a lot of acclaim for just being okay, I think. I don't know.
Well, I liked it. I like the premise.
It was odd. It was very odd to me.
Of course it's odd. Yeah,
that's
but
point,
you're somebody who keeps telling everybody to watch Licorice Pizza, which literally is like
Thomas Anderson. What are you talking about? Now, look, I will say, like, it wasn't quite like Wes Anderson odd, and I know that's an acquired taste by a lot of people, but for me, it almost kind of feels like a similar kind of dynamic there because I don't like all of Wes Anderson movies, but he's brilliant, obviously. So, but it's a little bit of an acquired taste, I guess.
All right. Well, let's just get to the business side. Thanks for tuning into the King's Beat podcast. We have squandered 5 minutes and 18 seconds of your time just talking about absolutely nothing, which is typical for us. Usually we drag this out for like 7 to 9 minutes before we actually jump into the show. Jump on board with the King's Beat. If you're watching here on YouTube, give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. That'd be greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel. Do all that stuff. Jump on board with the King's Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com. Become a subscriber. Become a premium subscriber. We will do an off the record with the King's Beat virtual happy hour, or a regular happy hour, or a meet and greet in the coming weeks. We just got to get through like this weird little stretch because I've got a lot of stuff going on. I have a birthday to celebrate this week and then next week, and it's kind of a big birthday. So I've been keeping low key, but yeah, it's one of those deals. So a little bit busy. And I've said this before, but my wife and I share the same birthday. So we both have
makes it easy.
May 15th birthday. So yeah, I can't forget. Also, the cool thing is that people who bring your wife gifts, they have to bring you a gift too. So yeah, it works out. Anyway, we will definitely figure out a time to get together in the very, very near future. We also, I did design a new King's. Well, I did not.
Well, careful with that tilt, that pan down.
Yeah, well, there we go. Our guy Jim over at Brick House Industries, of course, came up with the new hoodie. If you're interested in the new hoodie, just send me a message and I'll send out a link to the Shopify thing. I don't know, whatever it is, the store. Cool. Let's get into it. We got a bunch of crazy stuff going on with the Sacramento Kings. For it being the off season, it's been relatively busy. We did have a player workout last week, which Sean went to. We also had Doug Christie officially announced since the last time we had a podcast. We also had, let's see, on top of that, we had Mike Woodson named as the associate head coach. And lastly, we had the Kings lose their 2025 draft pick, first round pick, as part of the Kevin Huerter trade, because they did not move up in the NBA draft lottery yesterday. The NBA draft lottery. Yep. Go ahead.
And an assistant general manager.
Oh, and an assistant general manager, BJ Armstrong. Yes. No, good catch.
Been here in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, that we do have a lot of stuff to talk about. The one thing I was going to bring up before we jump into all the other crazy stuff and sort of our thoughts on the Kings building out their coaching staff, building out their front office, and all that stuff. Did you guys see the Zach Lowe statement that the Kings missed the top pick by one number again?
Yeah.
I did not.
What was the other time this happened? The Cade draft, maybe?
No, it's Wembanyama. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 2 years ago. I believe they had a lottery. No, they didn't have a lottery pick in that year. That's the year they made the playoffs. So it was a year before that.
So I didn't see that statement, so I'm glad you mentioned it. But so am I to take that information and say that the Kings were closer to the first round pick than either the Jazz or the Washington Wizards or the potential? Well, I guess I put the Hornets aside, but is that what that's to be?
I believe they all had equal odds except the Jazz with how the first three balls had played out, because there's four balls that are pulled for each selection. They go in correct order from first to last. And the first three combination numbers left it where there were multiple instances where it could be the Jazz, and then one instance of a handful of other teams where Sacramento was one.
Gotcha. So even being one number off, it doesn't necessarily change the. Okay, I think I know what you say. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
meaning so everything would have stayed the same. The only thing that would have changed would have been Kings in number one and the Mavericks out.
Yeah. Yes, the Mavericks would have been the 11th pick, and this doesn't have anything to do with the way the whole end of the season worked out with standings. So again, I know this is going to be a point of contention for a bunch of Kings fans because I see it online all the time. The Kings went for a win on the last game of the season. that win put them at 40 wins. If they would have sat at 39 wins, they would have tied with the Bulls and the Mavs. And then it would have been a couple of coin flips to see who got the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th pick. And it is possible, like weirdly possible, that the Kings could have moved up and could have been the 11th spot and then could have actually been the one that moved into the number 1 spot. But again, that's coulda, shoulda, woulda. Who knows? Like everything changes. It's like the butterfly effect, and even like I hate to say this, like there's a possibility that the coin toss could have gone like the Bulls, the Kings, and the Mavericks being the 13th pick and the Kings being the 12th pick, and everyone would have been excited because they got to keep their pick. And then somehow the Mavericks could have jumped all the way to number 1 from number 13 and pushed the Kings back to the 13th spot where they would have lost their pick again. So like there's a bunch of ways that could have gone really well for the Kings, but also really poorly. And so at the end of the day, you try to win basketball games. That's always been my opinion.
It's so funny how much attention gets put on whether or not to tank, improve your odds at the number 1 pick, percentages, ping pong balls. There's so much that's out of your control as we lose Brenden Nunes, who has hopped out of this our podcast for a moment.
Yeah, where did Brenden go?
I don't know. But there's so much that's beyond your control, and it also reminds me too. It's like, how many times, James, you probably get this, you talk to people, what do you think happens in the lottery? How is anyone supposed to answer that question? It is something that's beyond your control. It's not even in the team's control. Like I can understand if someone comes up to you, hey, who do you think wins in the Pacers-Cavaliers series? And you might be able to pontificate on a prediction there. But how do you predict something that is completely out of anyone's control other than your win-loss record contributing to your percentage in possibly winning the lottery? So you just play the games, right? You just play the games, you do what you do. And look, I think there's, in my mind, I think I had tweeted something. I mean, the team with the worst record never wins the lottery.
Yeah, Brenden, I'm going to hit you with this, Brenden. Welcome back since
Welcome back.
Yeah, Wi-Fi
you just
didn't like me.
Just got angry and left us. I kind of feel like the basketball gods, I don't like that it's Dallas that moved up, but I do like that the Hornets, who I think the Hornets didn't tank, they're just really bad. So like I'm okay with them being 4. But I really like that Utah and Washington and even the Pelicans are like 5, 6, 7. Like to me, that's like, I don't want to say it's like karmic justice, but to me, it's a pretty big, like I prefer that they didn't move up in the draft, because especially the Jazz, what the Jazz did was just gross. It's just egregious, like tanking every game possible. So where are you at on this, Brenden?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have extremely strong opinions on tanking in general. If anything, I tend to side more on, I think there's a reason that some of these teams do it, and it's kind of unfortunate in my mind for Charlotte, Utah, Washington, all who had tied for the best odds with 14% to sit there at 4, 5, 6, because now I feel like next question is, how long are these teams going to be bad for, or where do they go from here? Like it's obviously helpful for Dallas, San Antonio, but I think those teams already had a little bit of a direction. I guess Dallas, you could say, had more questions after an insane season that ended with Kyrie getting injured towards the end there. I think actually in Sacramento or against Sacramento, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yep.
But those teams kind of got screwed in this whole process, and I think there's a top 3 that people like in the draft, which, take that for what you will. Those things always end up having some sort of flaws, obviously, but I just kind of felt bad for Charlotte, Utah, and Washington, really. Like, I don't know how long this process is going to take for some of these teams. And to Sean's point about, maybe tanking not working or something along those lines you were kind of just saying, I think about the new draft lottery odds specifically. Like Atlanta jumped up last year, and sort of the effects that we're continuing to see of these new odds that are so leveled out. Do you guys have any thoughts, though, on the idea of, everybody's now saying, oh, this is rigged, and you can go to every time somebody trades a star to LA, the Chris Paul and the New Orleans gets a pick. New Orleans trades AD, they get a pick, this Luka thing. I personally probably choose to just not even acknowledge much of it. If it is rigged, as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather not even know. And because it would take away a lot from me. So I just don't even personally give it much thought because I don't think we'll ever know. And I'd rather choose to believe that it's not, even if that's a question, I guess. Where do you guys stand, though? I haven't been around it longer.
I think it's interesting that like this is always going to be discussed because it goes all the way back to the first lottery when Patrick Ewing went to the New York Knicks, and there's this conspiracy theory about a frozen envelope because it literally ended up being like there are like 12 envelopes or whatever it was at that time, and somebody randomly chose an envelope, and whoever was in that envelope got the first pick in the draft, and that of course was a huge draft because Patrick Ewing was everything. He was the talk of college basketball at Georgetown, just a superstar. Everyone knew he was going to be great. And he goes number one to the Knicks, which just ends up being like this huge thing. And there's, again, there's a conspiracy theory of the frozen envelope. I think it's really interesting that, Rick Welps is, he was the Warriors CEO or, like whatever, like the business side for like a decade. And he stepped aside. He just took the job with Dallas in January. Before the Luka trade. And so he's actually there in Dallas now. He was the one who actually ran the draft for the NBA in 1985, which has always been the conspiracy theorist draft. And now we have another conspiracy theorist draft in 2025, literally 40 years later, where he's there and somehow gets the number one pick. But outside of that, like, look, I think it's just a lottery. Like it's a giant wall of numbers. And does it help the NBA that Cooper Flag is going to a major market that is ready-made for him to drop in and be really good? And he's not going to go win 13 games a year or 14 games a year for the first 2 years and maybe get wasted as a talent. Yeah, it helps the NBA. But I also think rebuilding teams helps too.
Victor Wembanyama went to San Antonio the year before, 2 years before. It's just I don't know. It's one of those things. Look, I'm not going to say that the NBA lottery system has never been rigged. I don't think that's the conversation, but I think the league has made great strides in being transparent and making great efforts to make it to where it can't be rigged. And this is a multi-billion-dollar entity that is the NBA. Teams and having integrity and having everything on the up and up is highly necessary for the long-term success of the league. You have to be credible, and this having a representative from every team to watch how the process goes. You've got media that's able to watch how the process goes, and they stay sequestered in a room, and then that envelope and all those things go into those envelopes go into a room where now the general public sees, but those people still remain sequestered. They all get to view it. And I've never been one of those people, but I know very many people that have, and I think it's impossible to do at this stage in life, or nearly impossible to do. Back in the day when frozen envelopes, there might be something there, but I think that's why we have the system that we do now at this point.
I think they should air the actual pulling of the numbers. Like, I don't know if you guys caught the hockey lottery at all, but I thought that was super well done. As they're pulling numbers, they're putting live numbers up of what the likelihoods are based on the first couple shown, and they put it on YouTube after.
Yes,
but I would say just air it live.
I don't know. I mean, if you've ever watched it, it's not the most entertaining.
It's not, but I think
it's kind of confusing. I mean, the way the sequences go, it's a little confusing for the average person. I don't know. I'm fine with the way it is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And I'll say this, like, there is a way for them still to cheat. Like, they can weight the ping pong balls differently. And so basically, make it so the heavier or lighter balls will go into the hopper. And so you could potentially change the outcome. Excuse me.
Cough button.
Plus,
I couldn't get to the pause with the mute button. But at the same time, Like, look, I think it would be extremely complicated to come up with a 6-digit number that actually changed the outcome of the draft. And maybe we are being naive, but at the same time, like, there are journalists in the room. Like, I know Zach Lowe, like, I think he was there. I do know, like, Jake Fisher was there in the room. So I think that there are people who are overseeing and making sure that at least from the outside it looks legit. And it's just random, like, realistically, it's just a random generator, and like, somebody got lucky. Now, it does look fishy. I'm going to say that, and it looks
Does it?
strange. I think it looks really strange that the Spurs are number 2, and I think it looks really, really strange that Philadelphia is number 3. Especially if Philadelphia fell out of the top 6, they lost their pick to OKC, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, so it is what it is. At the end of the day, we just have to forge forward because Cooper Flagg is now going to the Dallas Mavericks. I think the biggest conversation that we can have about that is that the Dallas Mavericks just got way better. The San Antonio Spurs have potential to get way better because the top, picks number 2 and 3, both Rutgers guys. There's a combo guard and a point guard / shooting guard and a really nice small forward, both at that 2-3 spot. I think, like, San Antonio might be looking at themselves a little funny at this point and wondering what exactly is their move is, because if you're the second pick and the second pick ends up being a point guard, and you have Stephon Castle and you have De'Aaron Fox that you may or may not want to pay, that is a really interesting situation. I think a lot of people instantly jump to the, hey, look, you can go and trade the number 2 pick and maybe come away with a Kevin Durant, maybe come away with a Giannis Antetokounmpo, maybe, like, go get a superstar to go with your already developing team. But I also look at that team and go, there's also a possibility that you could build a really, really high-end young team around Castle and Wembanyama and Vassell and, the number 2 pick in this year's draft. And so I think it's going to be intriguing. And I also, if I'm the Spurs, I'm not just like going out and handing De'Aaron Fox a massive contract this summer without at least having some conversations about some other moves that I might make, including the potential to trade De'Aaron Fox to go get one of those players, maybe with the number 2 pick, to potentially go get a superstar. So I think it's interesting that the way the lottery fell really kind of adds a new wrinkle for, a guy that was here in Sacramento for 8 years, 7.5 years.
Yeah, and I think the West in general just comes away looking even stronger from all this. Obviously, Dallas, San Antonio, like you just mentioned, but also the East teams didn't get much better. 2 of those top 3 were Eastern Conference teams that ended up falling. Obviously, Charlotte 4, Washington there at 6. There's the Giannis conversation. Is he going to come to the West Coast? Is Trey going to come to the West? And just, year after year, it seems like the West Coast is getting deeper, more competitive. And it's going to be really hard to keep up for a team like the Kings that are kind of floating in the middle right now, trying to establish a new identity, whatever that may mean in year one.
Yeah. Let's get to the other aspect of this with all these teams moving up. The Kings did not. And that, of course, means that their pick goes to the Atlanta Hawks to complete the Kevin Huerter trade. We can get into whether the Kevin Huerter trade looks successful or not. Like after the general conversation. But for me, this is, I don't know if it's a horrible thing. The Kings now, like on July 1st, they get access to every pick from 2026 until 2032. And when you add in that they have the Spurs 2027 unprotected pick, the Minnesota Timberwolves 2031 unprotected pick, the Kings actually walk into the true offseason, not the draft, but, July 1st, the calendar reset for the NBA with 9 future first-round draft picks. And I kind of feel like this is a moment where you know what you have. And Scott Perry he doesn't get to draft someone this year in the first round unless he makes a trade, but he does have like a refresh button where now all the cupboard is stocked, right? Your second round pick status is a little weird. When the Kings gave up the pick to Atlanta, that did mean that they got back their 26 and 27 second round picks. So now they at least have a 25, 26, 27 second round pick. They have a 32 second round pick, but their 28, 29, 30, and 31 second round picks are all gone. And the only draft pick that they have that has any sort of encumbrance is the 2031, which is a pick swap with the Spurs. And sure, the Spurs could be great by then. The Spurs could also be bad by then. We don't know. Like that's plenty enough time for Victor Wembanyama to not want to be in San Antonio anymore and force his way out, for some of the other players they have to either work out or not work out. I'm not convinced that that's like the biggest deal of all time. It would have been nice to get that back in the De'Aaron Fox trade. But where are you guys at with that? The idea that like Scott Perry now has like a clean slate to work with.
I mean, technically, so did Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox. No one was like 3.8% chance. And I know obviously the Mavs just won the lottery, but I think they were already operating as if they're not going to have a pick and they're moving forward. So absolutely, to your point, Scott Perry takes over. He gets the cupboards full. He's got options for sure. To say that it's not a bad thing, I agree with, but it's also, the reality is they traded the pick. You don't have those handlebars on yourself going forward, and we've talked about this before, James, where even when they made that pick swap deal way back when, to me, it's almost, I almost feel like it's better just to rip the Band-Aid off in a lot of different situations, as opposed to be kind of have those handlebars as you go forward, because it really kind of prevents total fluidity and being able to accomplish a move that you might want to do. So, I think it's fine. I mean, certainly, like, you can argue whether or not you make those type of moves, if it's good for your organization going forward, if it's bad for your organization going forward. Obviously, they felt that a first round pick was of value for Kevin Huerter, and they wanted the player to put them in a position to be able to compete. And I know you said you'd get to that point later, so I almost jumped the gun. But my point is I think people had already been at peace with not having a pick this year. And to be honest, like, if anyone wasn't, like, I just don't see anyone. I just don't think it's the end all be all. I would also argue that short of making a trade, which you can still go out and do, because again, you have the cabinets full. I don't see how a draft pick slated right around the 13th where they are. Let's just say they did get in and had their pick, didn't have these restrictions. I don't see that type of player really helping this Kings team next year based on where they're currently at. Certainly there are exceptions. I mean, you look last year and just people that were taken right around that number, you have success stories, but I think it's more likely than not that player wouldn't necessarily fit this type of play right away situation that the Kings are in right now.
Yeah, I think that depends obviously on like what the Kings are trying to do in the near future as well. But freeing up those assets certainly is not a bad thing. I think the better outcome obviously would have been jumping into the top four. But I think that they have a clean slate draft asset wise, but there is still a lot of contracts that kind of need to be worked out on this team and top end players where it's like, all right, we don't really know about the fit of all this based on how last year played out. Like you mentioned, that 2031 swap that's owed to the Spurs, that's from the DeMar DeRozan deal. And, there's a world where they did that for a 1-year rental of DeMar DeRozan, really, if he ends up getting moved this offseason. So I think it's good to have those assets, especially considering that it feels like there are moves that need to be done. And maybe it's not as simple as, hey, what can we get for DeMar DeRozan? It's, can we add something to DeMar DeRozan potentially and try to go and work that way? So some flexibility in that way to throw in sweeteners, but I still think there's a lot of questions that need to be sorted out on the top of this roster.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are so many questions with this roster. I mean, they don't have a point guard, and realistically, if they're moving forward with DeMar DeRozan as their starting small forward, I think that's a huge issue as well. So, I mean, for me, as of right now, they need either another starting power forward or small forward, and being able to move Keegan Murray, and then on top of that, they need a point guard, like, just straight up. So, like, I don't want to like rehash all of that's happened this year because it feels like we always get into that. But I do think it's a good thing because look, like as of right now, like when you know what you have to work with, right? And like, look, the Kings, Monty McNair, Wes Wilcox, they were reluctant to give up an unprotected pick in like the Cam Johnson deal. They were willing to make a trade with the Nets, but they weren't willing to give up 2 first-round picks, and they were also very leery on giving up an unprotected first-round pick. Now, the Kings actually they have like 7 years of their own picks, but the 2 picks that they do own are unprotected. And so those picks you don't look at in the same way. Maybe you do, but there's a way in which the Kings could go trade 3 first-round picks, which if you're giving up 3 first-round picks, and you could even do 3 unprotected first-round picks, that is massive.
That's a lot.
That's a lot to go get a star-level player. 2 of those picks could not even be yours. You could just give up one of your own picks and go out there and try to, rebuild your roster with a massive, massive trade opportunity. Uh-oh.
I saw it too, Sean.
Oh, the chat is killing me.
Weezy said I look like a little kid with a fake beard, and Sean also said my beard looks fake before we pressed record.
I do think he looks like Mr. Beast. I'm just going to keep saying it.
Yeah, you might change my look with that comment. We'll see.
Why it is. I don't know why it is that you like just today you got to look. It's the long hair underneath the hat. It's hilarious. So
got me Wheezy 80. He was the
come on Wheezy.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, Wheezy works for us at ESPN 1320. So
okay.
Yeah. So there is a way the Kings could really, really improve this summer. My problem is that they have to make probably 2 moves in order to do that. And I don't know that they have the assets to fully make 2 moves. And
you don't think so?
I mean, maybe, but I mean, I'm not really giving up everything in my cupboard to go make 2 moves unless there's some really good stuff out there.
I think and James, you know this stuff better than me, but I think in addition to having that draft capital, having the exceptions that they were able to pick up. I mean, they have 4 trade exceptions. One is massive.
Yeah, I mean
16.8.
I can break it down really quick.
Please do.
So the Kings, they have 4 trade exceptions. Well, I think realistically they have 3. There's 2 small ones or 3 small ones. Like Davion Mitchell's trade exception is like $500,000 because that's what they gave up. They gave up his player salary for Jalen McDaniels. Which McDaniels do the Kings get?
Yeah, Jalen.
Okay. No, he's not. Well, not only that, but they gave up a 2nd-round pick to give him away. We don't need to rehash that ridiculously stupid move. That was one of the stupidest moves I've ever seen in the NBA. Like
James, your blood pressure.
Like seriously, why are you just like?
Come on! You're falling into your own trap.
I don't understand like the incompetence of that trade. Like I don't care what Wes Wilcox or anyone else wants to say. That was the stupidest trade I've ever seen in my entire life. Like it's a $4 million salary.
Okay, come on.
Worst case scenario, stretch provision the thing. Just break it up to 3. Okay, let me get back to focus, James. Focus.
Yeah, let's get James. Look how red you just turned.
Just get rattled, just like angry. Like, yeah, I get angry because like the problems that they made were so self-created. I just like so stupid.
Okay, back to the exceptions.
The exceptions, right?
There you go.
So they have a $6.3 million trade exception for Sasha Vezenkov. The problem is that expires on 6/28. So if they're going to make a move on draft night, like either to take their 2nd-round pick, let me just give you a scenario. If they go out and they look around and there's someone who's dangling a $5 or $6 million player, they could give up a 2nd-round pick and take on that contract with no problems using Sasha Vezenkov's trade exception and not give up anything, right? Then on top of that, they have a $5.8 million trade exception for Chris Duarte. Now, Duarte was traded after the calendar year shifted, the NBA calendar year. So it's good until July 8th. So that's actually a really interesting trade exception as well. And then the third massive trade exception is Kevin Huerter's. And Kevin Huerter, the Kings in the De'Aaron Fox deal, they were able to work it out where Fox goes to San Antonio, the Kings get Zach LaVine, and then however, and Zach Collins went. That's who went to
and Trey Jones,
Chicago, right? And Trey Jones. Well, the Kings were able to get a full trade exception at $16.8 million for Kevin Huerter's trade. So, and the other thing is that trade exception is good all the way until right before the trade deadline. So they can use that at any time. And the crazy thing about trade exceptions is if, as long as you haven't done something silly or incompetent, like hard cap yourself by trading for a player that has to be signed and trade when you're over the over the salary cap, then you can add a player. You can be at the luxury tax and then go add a $16-17 million player. Well, it caps at 16.8. Whatever the luxury, whatever the exception is the maximum dollar you can take back. You can't combine them. You can add them to a trade and make a larger trade that somehow creates another exception, but they can go trade for a $16 million player in January or December and take that salary back without having technically to give anything out. And so it really does work in the Kings' favor. So they have some assets there that,
and they also
might
have
help you.
4.7, right? That Bobby Marks had a 4.7 exception.
It's possible they have a 4.7, and that could, if they have a 4.7, that is the Jalen McDaniels.
So they got the 16.8, 6.3, 5.9, 4.7. So 4 total trade exceptions.
Yeah. Well, and then they've got some smaller ones as well.
Well, yeah, they got the veteran minimum, the second round, the biannual, and the non-tax mid-level.
Well, they have the biannual, which is a little, I think it's going to be over $5 million this year. And then 5. The mid-level is, I think, up to $14 million this year. Yep. And those now can be used to acquire players via trade. Now, Sakir Nabagley here in the chat, he says the same thing that our friend Rory used to say all the time, and RIP Rory, that Vivek isn't going to go into the salary cap, into the luxury tax. There is a possibility that they'll go into the luxury tax, but like the team has to be good.
They gotta be good. They haven't been good enough.
Well, they were good enough at 48 wins that they could have gone in the luxury tax at the trade deadline there. And they were good enough the next year where you're like,
James
okay,
turn red again.
No, could you find a better piece and upgrade your roster and get back into more of a playoff contention in year 2?
I mean, it just depends what ownership's definition of good enough is, right?
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, part of their definition is Zach LaVine is good enough. So I don't know that we should be respecting their decision making at all at this point. But just saying.
I won't argue that one.
Mic drop right there.
Right.
James, he's saucy tonight, man.
Sorry. Sorry.
That's what happens. You got the wine in there. He turns red. He gets going.
I haven't even I'm not even the half glass in.
Oh, God, look how big that glass is.
Big glass of wine.
Yep.
I made spaghetti tonight. I'm not getting to eat that spaghetti. It's sitting in the other room, but I needed to crack open a nice bottle of red to go with it.
I could probably go the rest of my life without having spaghetti again.
Really?
Yeah, man. When I was a kid, like that's that welfare food that they, you just eat that a lot because it's cheap and they, I just couldn't do it.
When I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money either. And so I would never touch bologna ever again. And on top of that, I couldn't eat like drumsticks and I couldn't eat just chicken for a long time because that's all we ate. We ate that and like hamburger patties with macaroni and cheese. Yeah. So
being poor sucks all the time. That was me. Poor kids.
Yeah. Anyway, now we have the exceptions broken down at least a little bit. the Kings. So people understand trade exceptions. They're good for 1 year from the date of the original trade. And it's basically what makes a trade a simultaneous trade or non-simultaneous trade. If the trade ends and there are no exceptions, then it's a non-simultaneous trade. No, then it's a simultaneous trade. If there are exceptions, which we've talked about in the past, which are like coupons, right, that you can go use for players down the road, then it's a non-simultaneous trade. Which leads us to the discussion about Kevin Huerter, because to be honest with you, we can sit here and complain about like how bad Kevin Huerter played in year 2, and then how bad he was for the half a season he was here in Sacramento last year, but the Herter trade in a way, like it hurts a little bit because you just lost a draft pick, but you also have this trade exception. So on his way out the door, he can be a gift, right? That you can go out and cash in this massive coupon at any time between now and like February 7th or whatever 6th, whatever the trade deadline is this year. So I don't know that the Kevin Huerter trade was a bad trade. I don't feel that way because he helped you win 48 games. He was a third leading scorer on the original Beam team. And, the fact that he lost his way in year 2 and year 3, yeah, it's a bummer. But you gambled on a 24-year-old starting level shooting guard, a 6'7" shooting guard, and he played really well in year 1. Like, where are you guys at with the Kevin Huerter trade? When you look at the totality of it, it cost you a first round pick, but at the same time, what you gave up initially was nothing. It was players that you weren't going to keep. I think
Mo
it was
Harkless and Justin Holiday, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Something like that. But where are you guys at with like the overall Kevin Huerter experience, and did the Kings lose in that trade or no?
I mean, I think it was fine. I think that they got a good year out of him. And sometime on top of that, I would say that under last year's circumstances, there's not very many players on the team that did perform exceptionally well. Now, Huerter was obviously more on the low side of that than I think most people on the roster, but I guess you also have to factor in the fact that they did include that pick swap you mentioned earlier, but they went and used his salary to go get DeMar DeRozan. So do we factor in whatever you get from DeMar DeRozan in a deal into these conversations, the taxpayer or the exception that you mentioned already? And so, I mean, I think that Kevin Huerter was a really valuable part of the identity of that team that they had that 1 year. I don't really know how much to put into their 1 year of success. I don't think it's fair to blame it on Huerter the way that it all sort of tumbled down. That's for sure. And again, I mean, the pace, spacing, that offseason where they brought in Huerter, Malik, and Keegan Murray, the spacing was just all of a sudden so different around De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. And I think that's why they had as much success as they did, setting the league record for offensive rating. Kevin was probably one of the best players at playing with pace on a night-to-night basis in the half court, in the open court. And so, he didn't perform towards the end of his contract, but I think it was a pretty crap circumstances for him, not to just absolve him of any blame in this process. But I think they kind of got what they wanted.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. Like, how many times do you get to various points in the year and fans are always saying they need to do something. They just need to do something. Go get something. Like, that was their version of doing something, trying to add to a team that desperately needed some shooting around two talented pieces. And like it or not, he was fantastic in Atlanta for the most part, playing in the Eastern Conference Finals, playing with a very high profile point guard, having playoff success. And he looked every bit of that player in that first year. I always joke, but it's kind of half kidding. Like, the 3-point shootout totally changed what we knew of Kevin Huerter, where he absolutely was terrible in that competition. And I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you dissect the problems of Kevin Huerter and where it went wrong, but I will say, like, I don't think they gave up. I thought at the time it was a good trade. I liked what they were doing. I liked the aggressiveness in it. And, hindsight's 2020, and I think we lost Brenden again, but hindsight's 2020. You don't have a crystal ball. You have to kind of make it work to try to build around your team. And at the time, I thought that was the type of move that they needed. And I thought it was a bit of a risk, but honestly, like, with the protections, like, kind of thought that that pick would, based on the way they played that first year, would have gone to Atlanta a lot sooner than it did. So, yeah, man.
I'm with you. I agree with you guys. Like,
And
I don't think
Brendan's
the
back.
Kevin Huerter trade was a disaster by any stretch of the imagination. And like, look, like, I'm just gonna point out that the Kings had the 13th pick in last year's draft, right? That went, and they drafted Devin Carter.
Yep.
That's kind of the level of player you get for the 13th pick in the draft. Now, that's not always the case. I'll say Donovan Mitchell was the 13th pick. Bam Adebayo was a 14th pick, and the 2017 NBA draft. I mean, there was a point where in the, I want to say 1996 draft, where the 13th, 14th, and 15th pick were Kobe Bryant, Peja Stojakovic, and Steve Nash. So the 13th pick can have value. Giannis Antetokounmpo was like the 14th, 15th pick. There have been great players drafted in that area, but at the same time, wasn't Yorgos Papagiannis the 13th pick in the draft?
Oof.
And we can say, oof, like, oh my gosh, that's
Yes,
horrible.
good Lord.
But the next pick wasn't good either. And the pick after that wasn't good either. Like, none of the players taken, right? I think it was like Denzel Valentine or someone was taken like the next pick. Like,
I guess another way to look at the Huerter thing is, would you do it again, knowing what you know?
Actually, Sean, would you do it again for a player of the same type of value as Kevin Huerter?
Yeah.
Because that's the question, right? Because let's be honest, like,
I guess it depends on, I guess value might be different to all three of us, but I guess you have to look at a collection of players, and in this fantasy world, say you could have your pick of the lot for the same trade. And who might that be?
I mean, think that right now you're seeing a front office come in, talk about building an identity and shaping a roster how they want. And I feel like that's exactly what Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox came into. And that was a big part of what I just mentioned, drafting Keegan, signing Malik, and trading for Kevin. That came in, and Kevin was, like I mentioned, part of setting that culture. So yeah, I think you do kind of do the same thing over again, but maybe for a different type of guy, even if they're a similar caliber.
Yeah, and that's where I would I think the Kings should probably, like, this offseason very specifically, I think you hope that they'll be able to swing for the fences and get one really, really good player that improves the roster. But then you have to have that second trade that brings in a player of Kevin Huerter's caliber. And I don't know how you pull both of those trades off. There's a possibility you can pull it off. There's also a possibility you can't. But like, I kind of look at, like, there's superstars, there's stars, there's all-stars. We'll group those three way up here. Then there's the, like, near all-star level players, which, like, I think a prime example is like Tobias Harris. Like, never was an all-star. Jamal Murray, never an all-star. Mike Conley Jr., I think, has one all-star appearance. And then you have the level right below that, which is NBA average to right above NBA average. And I think that's where you find Kevin Huerter. It's where you find Harrison Barnes. It's where you find Malik Monk. It's where you find, like, a lot of really good value players that, like, if you're sitting here and you're the Kings and you're looking at draft picks and you're like, okay, like last year's draft, if you're sitting at number 13, you have no idea what you're going to get from the 13th pick in the draft. But you do know that the 13th pick in the draft typically has enough value that you can get a player of Kevin Huerter or Bobby Portis, or maybe even like Naz Reid if you added a little bit more. Like,
Isn't there talks about a Caruso even last year for 13?
Yeah, that's exactly like that type of player. That's an impact player, but you also know who they are and what they are. And there's, like, an understanding that you're giving up potential, but what you're getting back is, like, what you know. You're getting back productivity versus potential. And so I'm okay with that, right? And I would be okay if the Kings did it again. Like, I think they're in a position where, like, they have a bunch of ways to improve the roster right now. And, they can trade DeMar DeRozan. We heard Jake Fisher, like, say the quiet thing out loud that the Kings are going to go out there and look to shop DeMar DeRozan at during the offseason. But you have to look at DeRozan in, like, I think there are three different ways you can look at DeRozan. You can look at him as like a straight like talent swap, and I think his contract and his play is sort of equal, right? He's not a negative asset at this point. He's not a positive asset, so I don't think you can go trade DeMar DeRozan for like a couple of first-round picks or something. But I do think there is a way in which you can go trade DeMar DeRozan and get better fit pieces for him for a team that just needs a score. There's also a way in which you can take DeMar DeRozan and bail on him and try to get, maybe back into the late first round of this year's draft. And then there's the other way where you can take DeMar DeRozan's salary and either trade him for a comparable player or start adding in additional salary and additional picks, and he's the vehicle to go get you a player, right? And so I think the Kings have options with DeMar, and the fact that he averaged 22 points a game is great. Like I brought this up on the Insiders today, and again, I like to say this, Kyle likes to say it, but this is not reporting. But like, do you think that the Miami Heat would consider DeMar DeRozan for Duncan Robinson and Jaime Jaquez? And your initial thing is, oh, there's no way they're going to trade Jaime Jaquez. Then go look, and he averaged 20 minutes a game, and he was almost out of the rotation at the end of the year.
Yeah, he didn't hardly play in the playoffs. I mean, I think something like that, like, is there a Wiggins swap in there would that benefit the Kings? DeMar has about 2 years, $50 million left on his deal. The last year is only $10 million of the 25, about 25.7 guaranteed there, with some stipulations based on if you were to make an all-star game or things like that. It could get a little bit higher. But I was trying to outline like what teams could potentially be interested in DeRozan just totally from the outside. And it's tough. I mean, you just saw how he didn't fit seamlessly into the Kings. Like Miami, you mentioned, James. Is Detroit somebody that's looking for another creator? If I'm Detroit, that's not the direction I'm trying to go in personally. And then you have the weird like talent swaps you're talking about. Like, is Denver trying to shake something up with MPJ? Is there a world where you attach assets and like getting Kevin Durant conversations? I think that may be a little bit too sweet for what we're talking about here, but a complicated part of it to me is DeMar is a very unique player in today's NBA. He's a mid-range guy. He knocked down, he shot 49% from mid-range on cleaning the glass, which has a garbage time filter this year. That's tied for the best he has in his career. Like he still does that at an extremely elite level and put up 22 points a game, but he's a very unique player in today's NBA. And I think that just makes it tough for, all right, what teams would actively pursue him?
There's two teams in the West that, in my opinion, I think, in my opinion, would be the best landing spots for somebody like DeRozan, and one unlikely that also kind of fits that same thing. One of which, I'll go with the first two, I think is kind of the best fits for him. The Clippers, who were interested in before the season started, and I still think that would be a pathway there. Obviously not knowing who they would get back entirely, but I think that's a good fit. Depending upon what Phoenix does, I think that could be another landing spot. And then the holy, idea would be possibly of Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think in watching some of the things that they do, certainly there's not a whole lot of room that they need to improve. But I think in a series like this against the Denver Nuggets going on right now, you can certainly see where he might be able to help.
I'll also say the playoffs, if people have been watching, the game has slowed down so much than the regular season. How many games are under 100-point scoring? And I watch it and you think about it from the Kings perspective, it's like, hey, this is probably when DeMar DeRozan would be the most useful on your team, is during the postseason. Now, that's not to say I still think there are all the fit questions and it probably makes sense to move on, but he has value. And you move on from DeMar DeRozan, you kind of need another guy that is able to create in your half-court offense, which is just a total question mark right now.
Okay. I think that we're in for a really wild summer, but we mentioned DeMar. On top of DeMar, just going to, you got Valanciunas at roughly $11 million that has I think there's a team option for the final year. So he's 2 years left, but only 1 year's guaranteed. You've got the Devin Carter situation, which is about $6 million that you may or may not want to move on from. But then on top of that, I think it doesn't take long before we start getting to like Malik Monk. And I'm wondering where you guys are at with this, because like I think there's a way, like, again, if let's just say, just crazy talk here, but let's say Ja Morant becomes available, right? You can get there with DeMar DeRozan and um like Devin Carter and maybe one more like regular contract. You can also throw in Valanciunas there.
And then you get the phone hung up on you.
Well, no, that's
Yes.
just hey, no, that's the basics. That I'm talking after that, you're giving up 3 or 4 first round picks. Like,
right.
no. Yeah. This is about picks.
Unprotected,
it's not about,
likely.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got 2 unprotected that aren't yours, so why not? But you understand what I'm saying. Like, there is a way in which, like if you're going to go after a guy like Ja, or if you're going to go big game hunt. And I bring up Ja because, again, Ja to me it can be a nightmare, just like as a personality and just the nonsense. Like, I don't like the nonsense that the Ja brings. There's also the fact that he gets hurt all the time because he plays like a reckless abandon style. I appreciate the player that he is, and I think he's extremely talented, and I would love to watch him play on a nightly basis. But there's also like the other side of him that just doesn't make any sense to me. But like, that's the type of player that, like, I mean, the Kings don't have a point guard at all, and I don't think anything should be off the table at this point, right? Are you guys of the same, like, I'm not saying, hey, go trade Malik Monk. But when I look at the Kings roster and I look at Devin Carter and I look at Keon Ellis and I look at Zach LaVine and I look at Malik Monk, they all play the same exact position. They're different players, but they play the same exact position. And the pathway forward is for 1 or 2 of those guys to not be there anymore, and for you to be able to fill out both a shooting guard position and a small forward position. So you got to give up something to get something. And I think that that's a little, that's like the reality of the situation. But like, where are you guys at with like the other players not named DeMar DeRozan, and how attached are you? Or are you kind of the like, again, the opinion that like, hey, all bets are off at this point?
There's in my mind, there's not really a guy that's untouchable. And just being real, like, this team is not good enough. And if you're getting somebody like Ja Morant, they're all available in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that simple. I think Domas, I think Malik, and also there's the aspect of those guys probably have a little bit more league-wide value. Domas, I think, is a little questionable based on how team to team they may feel about his contributions at that number salary. But like you said, you got to give something to get something, and you have clear holes on this team, and a bench scorer is kind of a luxury when you have all these holes in your starting lineup that need to be fitted out as well. So, I mean, you clearly need a point guard. And if you got a valuable guy sitting on your bench that is going to lock in what you trust to be a starting point guard or a starting 3, 4, whatever it may be, then I think you absolutely have to consider that.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, I think at this point, like, all bets are off. Like, I think that the Kings can still build around Domas. They can still build around Domas and Keon and Keegan, and then like try to adjust the other positions. I don't think they can move on from Zach LaVine. I don't think anyone's taking his contract. But at least this year, I think next year you can maybe find a taker for his contract. And then, you kind of grow from there. I also, like, I wouldn't be shocked if the Kings do something crazy like extend Zach LaVine this summer, just because that's who they are, right? So, yeah, I think it's going to get interesting.
Which would mean...
Oh, did we lose him?
Just
damn it.
Hanging on every word. And what an unfortunate freeze frame. That's a tough one right there.
Boy, he's got to figure out his Wi-Fi. It's like,
I mean,
Wi-Fi.
obviously, I do wonder how much of and I know that, Giannis Antetokounmpo has had a lot of attention
he's back.
this week. Oh, okay, go ahead, Brenden. I'll hold.
I never even lost you guys somehow. I heard you. I was looking fine on my end the whole time.
Did you hear what I said about you?
I did. Yeah. Unfortunate freeze, apparently.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But no, please continue.
No, you were going. You were about to say something.
What was I talking about?
While he thinks of it, I'll finish.
For the Levine extension, it would require him declining his player option, right?
Yeah, I'm not building a player extension off his $49 million.
Right.
If he wants to take $40 million and do like a 3-year 120, like I would at least listen. I would also be a little leery on that.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
What I was getting to there was a lot of talk about someone like Giannis and then the messaging that's kind of around his quote unquote availability, if you are to believe those rumors about basically wanting to get to a income tax free state. Certainly that's some of the things that you always hear about. Sometimes it's not really totally said out loud. I guess this one's kind of been publicly reported on, at least, but it will be interesting to see any of those big names that you might be going big game hunting and how many times you run into that and a player not wanting to play in a state like California where income tax exists.
Yeah, I mean, California is a beautiful state, and I love California, and I don't want to live anywhere else, but the taxes here are brutal. I mean, you're basically looking at income tax of like over 9% in addition to your federal taxes. And that's where, like a guy like Giannis is looking at like the sheer volume of money he's just giving away to state and local tax. We'll have to see. Like, I don't think that, but it's not as cut and dry as that, because you have to pay income tax in every city that you play in. I know that sounds weird, but like NBA players, they have to have a really good accountant, and they have to pay tax because when they play a game in Chicago or Texas or Miami or New York, they have to have somebody who does their taxes, and they pay income tax in all of those states
for those games. It's the same thing for all professional gig, all these professional athletes. I mean, you encounter it all the time, but it is interesting. I mean, it's almost like you wonder if the league has to step in and end up doing something, because it is such a player friendly league. The players run everything. I almost would admire a team that just says, you know what? No, we're the ones that's going to control your fate. We have essentially your rights, and we're going to trade it to wherever the hell we want to trade it to. And it kind of goes back to the Kawhi Leonard thing in San Antonio and how that thing all played out before he went to Toronto and ultimately won a championship there. I feel like there would be an instance where you have too many players who control. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox just did that to make his way to San Antonio. But if Giannis is going to try to handpick where he plays, if I'm the Bucks, I don't necessarily have to play along. I want to trade him to where I'm going to get the best value.
No, that's always the case, and that's where I'm at with players.
And he's already extended, so it's not like you have a player who may or may not choose to re-sign, like in the De'Aaron Fox situation where he's extension eligible. He's going to re-sign with the Spurs, and publicly says that's the only place I will go if I'm traded.
I am currently ducking over to watch the score. It is currently 92-87. Denver over OKC. OKC just hit a 3, I believe. 92-87. Lou Dort just hit a 3. This is a great series.
Easily the best series of the second round. Other ones were kind of disappointing. First few games were great. Like all the road teams winning those first few. Shout out Tyrese, by the way, putting up 31 in an elimination game for a guy that I never thought would be a self-creator in the way that he's become. He's hit 2 game-winning shots in this postseason already. Hopped up on the scorer's table for the first one, and a step back triple for the other one. Like, I just never imagined that this guy was going to be making these type of shots, and being a number 1 on a team that's gone to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years in a row. So,
he was a big shot. He was a big shot taker and a big shot maker.
Whoa, that was close.
Yeah, no, he was a big shot maker in his first year with the Kings. You're like, oh, look at that. Like, whoa, like gutsy. So I get like, I really love Tyrese Halliburton as a player, but I still like the hindsight, and we've got, again, somebody in the chat who just like is being an a-hole and so like super full of himself. Gordon Ho. Like I agree with somebody who said, why are you being such a hoe, Gordon? Yeah, like to me, like the Halliburton discussion versus like what the Kings gave up, what they got, all that stuff. Like I really like what Indiana did after the Tyrese Halliburton trade. If the Kings would have continued to build out their roster and gone out and got a player like, I don't know, an all-star like Pascal Siakam to go with the other players that they had, the Kings would probably still be playing today. But they're not, because they stopped doing anything once they
here we go again.
made those trades. So
I mean, no, you're right though. Like Andrew, even the smaller pieces, Andrew Nemhard, Aaron Nesmith, like guys that definitely make a difference. And I think that again, Tyrese's ceiling, I think, was starting to become more clear than maybe what it was pre-draft by the time they traded him. But threw me off a little bit. But I think that it looks really bad from the Kings' perspective right now.
And you were mentioning Tyrese Halliburton, and if I know him, he would have followed up your praise of things you didn't expect him to do to ask about how you thought his defense was.
It was all right. It was all right. It was fine. They're still picking on him. They're still picking on him. Just saying.
Yeah.
I just can't believe they ran over the Cavs. I'm bummed out that that's what the Cavs look like in the playoffs.
Top seed in the East, man. That was, I mean, my goodness. I mean, they always talk about playing your best basketball, when you're just heading in there. I think that was the case for the Pacers. I don't know if it was quite this good, but it's all about matchups. I mean, look at the Thunder. The Thunder have been head and tails above, better than anybody in the West, having double-digit lead, and then here's the Nuggets, kind of holding their own. You got a 2-2 series.
Yeah, I mean, like, in all honesty, I think people underestimate the greatness of Nikola Jokic, and everyone built their teams to defend the Boston Celtics, which is what you should do, right? And what the Kings were allergic to. Like, the Kings are built to defend Jokic like no other team in the league. It's like, hey, look, we got Sabonis and then Valanciunas. Like, we can throw different looks at Jokic. The rest of the league, like, I love what the Knicks did. Like, what they're doing to Boston, what they did to Boston is crazy. I feel bad for the Jason Tatum injury, but it doesn't matter. The Knicks are the better team in that series no matter what. But they were specifically built to stop Tatum and Brown. Like, they went out and got OG Anunoby. They went out and got Mikal Bridges. And those guys have done their jobs, and they've been incredible. Well, what is Mitchell Robinson going to defend Jokic if they make it to the finals? Like, that's trouble. Like, Neemias Queta might be like the Boston Celtics' best opportunity to slow Nikola Jokic. Like none of these teams are built to stop Jokic, and that's where it's like I think Denver's got a really good shot here.
What do you think? What do you guys think of? I mean, Brendan's obviously the Celtic, grew up the Celtics fan. Like, with Tatum going down, and you heard these whispers and reports about how the Celtics are going to have to basically not blow it up, but certainly trim, right? And that maybe it's a Jaylen Brown. At the time, I didn't think that would be. Certainly a Holiday might be involved, maybe a Porzingis. But in looking at them now with this injury, what do you do?
I mean, I think that you hope that Jaylen is a little excited about getting to spread his wings a little bit more. His solo minutes without Tatum in this postseason, especially against the Knicks, were not the cleanest, I will say. But I think that you do kind of have to trim it down a little bit and just rework a little bit of what's going on here. Like, you mentioned some of the names, but I would say 2 of the 3 of Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and then probably Derek White. And, Derek White, I think obviously extremely valuable player, but most value out of all those guys too, if you're trying to look at it from that perspective. But I think you kind of have to trim some of those sort of guys and see what Tatum's process looks like, and then be back at it the year after.
He's almost James. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I don't know if you'd agree. He almost Derek White to me, especially with given the Tatum injury. Him and Jaylen Brown are almost non-starters in terms of parting ways with one of those guys, unless you're getting. I mean, depends on what you're getting, of course, but that's how my mind would work in terms of the way they build around just trying to survive.
Same. You get rid of Drew and KP. KP for sure, I would say, but that's a harder one to get off of.
Drew is old. And he's owed a bunch of money. And,
right. He's the easy one right there, I feel.
Well, he's the easy one, but in theory, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's almost 35 years old, And on top of that, like Drew Holiday is owed a ton of money. And like, I'm not sure that you can just go out and easily move him. You know, he's owed $32.4 million next year, $34.8 million the next year, and $37.2 million as a player option in 27-28. And we're talking 36, 37, and 38. Who's taking that contract?
James is saying if he's the Kings, he's passing on Drew Holiday.
I mean, I really like Drew Holiday. Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh, now I can.
Oh, I heard him. I heard
poor
you.
Brenden. Brendan's living in
Brennan's
some
going through
weird,
it.
Yeah, I don't know what is going on.
James type internet. Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I'm not sure that you can move off of Drew Holiday. Like, not just simple, not easy. I mean, you got $100 million owed. Like, I mean, sure. Like, if the Kings could swap out, you know, if you want to make a crazy deal and take on one of their other contracts and move Zach LaVine for Drew Holiday, okay. Or if you're going to trade, you know, DeMar DeRozan for Drew Holiday, that might make sense too, because at least he gives you a couple of years. But I don't know what Drew Holiday looks like on what could be a marginal team at this point in his career, you know. So I feel bad for Boston losing losing Jason Tatum, but at the same time, I think there has to be something said about, hey, how about you stop shooting 63s a game? Like, that doesn't make any sense, and you keep doing it, and then you get in the playoffs and you go cold for 2 games, and you're down 2-0 in a series.
Well, they did win a championship last year.
I was going to say, my goodness.
They won a championship last year, but not shooting that many threes.
No, they got the number up, and I think they were an interesting test for, I guess, sort of leaning heavily into that logic. But there were definitely instances where it's like, all right, you should probably drive at this point. But the 25 from 100 to start the first 2 games was, I do feel like there's an aspect of you were getting okay looks and kind of missing shots as well.
Okay, so they shot 48.2 threes per game at only 36.8%. 48.2 threes per game. Let's see what they shot last year when they won 64 games and they won the title. Last year, they shot 42.6. You're literally looking at an additional 6 threes a game. Like, I don't think that's sustainable for anybody, because then you're fully stuck at, like, hey, if you go cold, you're in trouble. I mean, taking away the Tatum and Brown drives and like their ISO play, like, I'm not sure that was a great move. So anyway, yeah. Let's get to some of the basics. What are you guys' thoughts on Mike Woodson as the associate head coach for the Sacramento Kings? The Kings have not built out the rest of their staff yet. There's some other, like, Bobby Jackson might be joining the staff, or probably is joining the staff, but we don't have any confirmation yet on that. But Mike Woodson is the associate head coach. What are your overall thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you guys may have more experience with Mike throughout the years than I have, having it been none, obviously. But I think just from looking into him a bit, I'm interested to see what the offense looks like. Seems to be an offensive-oriented guy that you bring in alongside Doug, associate head coach. And, you know, can you get some of that free-flowing offense that Scott Perry was talking about? Obviously, a lot of experience, I think, is great to have next to Doug as well. And also seems like a fun locker room guy. I don't know if you guys remember, like, I heard Mike Bibby recently tell a story about Mike Woodson shaving his eyebrows off, and they weren't exactly sure why it happened. It may have been an accident, but then he comes in with like Velcro looking eyebrows that he decided to put on his face. So random little story, but I think that he seems like a fun guy in general. But more importantly, a crap ton of NBA experience, and gets to come in and lead an offense and complement Doug with all the experience that he has while Doug is getting accustomed to this role.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a move that, whether it was going to be an assistant or a head coach, I just kind of anticipated Mike Woodson being a member of the Kings again, after being, you know, a guy who has ties to the '85 team, the first team in Sacramento. He's interviewed for a head coaching position before. He's certainly been a journeyman in terms of the coaching ranks. He's never out of a job. Everyone always hires him. I mean, he always ends up somewhere. I think the college, him spending time with Indiana, I think is somewhat interesting, although people might push back on the lack of success that they had there. But I feel like it's an interesting way from a guy who's had NBA head coaching experience at two places, both with New York and Atlanta, to then be this long time NBA assistant, and then to take over, to go into the college ranks. This guy's always coaching, always finding jobs, always people thinking highly of him. I'm interested to see the whole staff in its entirety and when it gets completed. I would think that hopefully Doug Christie can add another person that has head coaching experience. That would be, if I was a GM and wanting to see Doug truly thrive, I would want to see another NBA level head coach to put with him. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's Doug's staff and whatever he's going to be most comfortable with. So Mike Woodson's here. I think that's a good start, and we'll see where it goes. But the guy just there's not many situations he hasn't been in. So to have that guy sitting next to you is going to be a pretty good resource, in my opinion.
I totally agree. Again, Doug needs to hire 2 or 3 guys, well, 1 or 2 guys that have head coaching experience, and he got one of them. And they don't have like a long-standing relationship. They know each other, but not like super close. But that doesn't mean anything. Like, I think Doug will learn to rely on him very quickly. He's 67 years old. It's not like he's a guy who's looking to steal the head coaching job away from Doug or anything else. But I think what we saw towards the end of the season was Doug Christie like worn to a nub. Like, there wasn't a lot left of him in the last like 5 games of the season. He didn't know how, and he didn't have the trust to hand off a whole bunch of stuff to his assistants. And that's because it wasn't his staff. And so I think Mike Woodson, getting Mike in early, having Mike help with the draft process, bringing players in, working them out, all that stuff, I think that's a big deal. He's just going to help Doug have some structure. And I think it's a good thing that Mike forced Doug to be the summer league coach last year, because Doug kind of got a taste for what it looks like to be the head coach. But then he got a 51 game like test drive. And I think Woodson is a perfect guy because he's a little bit defensive minded. He does have some ties to Sacramento as a player, not as a coach, but as a player. And then on top of that, he's got a bunch of ties to Scott Perry. And I don't look at the Scott Perry, Doug Christie, Mike Woodson like pairing as like adversarial. I think they're all there to help each other. And that's one thing that I've taken away from talking to Scott Perry in the past, and talking to Scott Perry like in the recent, when he had his when he had his press conference and everything else, like his motivations are pretty pure. Like, he's here to win. He's not here for a bunch of nonsense. And that's not always the case with some of these guys. So I like it. We do know so far, just like, I don't know how many assistant coaches Doug is going to have, but Leandro Barbosa, it looks like, will be back. Dip, I don't know how to say his last name. He'll be back. Jimmy Alapeg, from what I know, is back.
He was in the gym the other day. During the pregame the pre-draft workout, and you're talking about Depeche Mystery.
Yeah, Depeche Mystery. There we go. Yeah, which everyone calls Dip. And then Stefan, I think that's his name. I'm not sure his last name. Who was new to the staff this last year. So gone are Jim Moran, who went to go join the staff of Luke Laux at Florida State, and all of us had at least Sean and I, spending time in the pregame locker room, we had a pretty good relationship with Jim. Just a really good dude. So I think he'll be missed a little bit. Ricky Foyce is like a super fun guy, and he's not going to be around. I don't know who else is gone from last year's staff. Oh,
Rod
Robbie
Williams.
Lemon. Joao Williams, Robbie Lemons. I kind of think that Robbie Lemons is one of those guys that they're going to miss. Like I liked Robbie, and I'm kind of surprised he's not going to be back on the staff. He was kind of a bridge between analytics and the coaching staff.
And that's the question that Bryce brought up. He was asking about giving a description of Robbie, and that's who he's referring to.
Yeah, Bryce, that's Robbie Lemons is who you're talking about. Just so we pulled this up and
Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford grad, super bright.
What's Bryce got in his picture right there? That looked like
he's a
neat little beverage.
It's the liquor that 1320 pushes. What am I? Is that rum? I believe.
Oh, yeah. McQueen and the Violet Fog. Yeah, I have some of that sitting right over there on the shelf, which I'm not drinking tonight. Clearly just a red wine night for me. Yeah, so that's the coaching staff. On top of that, BJ Armstrong was brought in. BJ Armstrong spent, after he retired from the Bulls, he went right into the front office with Jerry Krause for Chicago for a couple of years. And then he's been a player agent for like the last, 20 years, 19 years, something like that, 2006, I think. I like that signing as well. BJ Armstrong is a guy that everyone knows from the great run of the Bulls during the 90s. And having ties around the league is huge. And it's another guy who, first of all, he had a podcast with Scott Perry. I'm kind of regretting that I didn't dump you two and have a podcast with Scott Perry so I could be on this staff.
I think they should keep the pod going.
Yeah, I think so too. Just go ahead and, Mrs. Ham with the refill.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah. So, what are you guys' thoughts on BJ Armstrong? I'm sure, Sean, you got some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny. I've seen some people who are criticizing his client list, as if that's supposed to say how good he is. He doesn't have the strongest client list when he was an agent, and that is just crazy. There's no correlation from one to the other. One is he has a ton of relationships. He knows how, obviously, the X's and O's of a salary cap, the numbers, the figures, knows how contracts work. But also having that agent relationship coming from a team like Wasserman, where he's got so many people, other agents around him that are going to continue on to be agents. Those are people you're going to be. I mean, Wasserman's one of the biggest one in the game, in terms of sports agencies. So having those relationships is going to be huge. Having a familiarity with Scott is going to be huge. I'm curious to see how that front office gets put together. Do they add another assistant GM? I mean, Scott Perry had 3 at one point. Vlade had 1, or between Vlade and Scott, they had 3 at one point. I don't know.
No, I think they had 4.
4? Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Well, yeah, with Brandon Williams gone and, Mike Bratt's gone.
Mike Bratt's, Ken Catanella, Peja. Yeah, they had a lot of assistant GMs.
But I believe in any one time there was just, the most they had at one time, I think, was 3. But the interesting part too is just they're going to keep, obviously, Phil Jabbour, Paul Johnson, some of these other names that you'll hear a lot over the summer, and holdovers, and obviously Alvin Gentry as well. I think that institutional knowledge for Scott Perry and BJ Armstrong is going to be incredibly valuable as they navigate these new waters. Obviously, Scott Perry is very familiar already with the Kings and Vivek Ranadive and some of the other members within the ownership group, but it's all in my mind, having a collaboration between two things. You don't come in here and maybe clean house. I might, but somebody else comes in and says, I need to keep a lot of key figures around because they know how things work here. They know how certain processes are. They're familiar. They're thought of highly from other people. And I think that just helps make things a little bit more fluid. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this staff gets put together. I'm curious to see what they do with the analytics staff, because obviously you're coming from a very analytic heavy regime to this one that I would anticipate would be analytic heavy as well. But that remains to be seen. So a lot of question marks, and a lot of curiosity as to what the weeks and months ahead look like. But I can tell you, going into the one pre-draft workout that we've had, and certainly there'll be more along the way as the combine is this week, but you look around the gym and there was a good combination of, I have no idea who the hell that is, to, oh, there's Jimmy Alapag. There's a few familiar faces over here. So yeah, going to be fun.
All right. It looks like the Oklahoma City Thunder made a comeback and are going to beat the Denver Nuggets to take a 3-2 lead in that series.
Jokic has 44, 15, and 5, and just hit one of the most insane fadeaway triples from the top of the key, and it did not matter. It's tragic. Yeah, what a series, though. He's pretty good. He's pretty good.
It's a great series, man. Whoever wins out is probably going to win the chip.
Minnesota's pretty good.
I am not impressed
both these
at
teams
all.
Over Minnesota.
Minnesota is barely beating a horrible Golden State Warriors team.
That's fair. I would also take either of Denver or OKC over them, but I think that Minnesota will put up a fight.
Okay. I think
agree.
it's whoever wins this is 5. It's 5 with Minnesota.
I don't like Minnesota against OKC. I kind of like Minnesota and the familiarity with Denver more so, but with OKC, I don't like that matchup for them. Do you?
I did not expect Julius Randle to be this good in the playoffs.
I leave Julius Randle alone. I'm always a fan of him.
Same.
Yeah, I did not expect him to be this impactful and like seriously go out there and be the second best guy on a team like that. So I mean, what he's been able to do to take away to like occupy Draymond Green is crazy. Like, and he's just rolling over Draymond. This is wild. So good for
Draymond.
Julius
has
Randle.
also been his crazy usual self and blaming the entire world except himself. Those comments were a little crazy to me. But
what do you think of the coaching in that series, by the way?
In what aspect?
One coach has players and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, when Pat Spencer's getting run and I'm like, hey, this looks kind of good, then we're probably not in a great spot.
Yeah, when your only hope is to turn to Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski, who looks just like the younger brother from So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Heed pants now.
That's right. Thank you, Sean. Brandon will never get that, but
nope.
Yeah. So okay. So we covered the coaching staff. We covered the front office changes. Let's just get to the business of basketball.
Jesus.
I'm not super prepared for the business of basketball because we kind of covered every topic throughout
the whole
business this episode.
Yeah. So, I guess.
Will you be paying attention to the combine at all? Even though the Kings don't have a first round pick? I mean,
of course.
Yeah, got to.
Hand size means everything, Sean. Whatever that means.
Whoa.
No, I think.
Big gloves.
Yep.
No, let's talk about like inside basketball here. How refreshing was it, Sean, to see pre-draft workouts in Sacramento?
Yeah, it was great. It shows a team doing their due diligence. I think that they're doing the right thing. I mean, that's kudos to this regime and open them up and can't put anything in video form or even picture form to show people, but at least we have something to talk about with these guys. And it certainly helps in what lies ahead for not only the draft, but summer league, free agency, training camp invites, G League. They're all kind of interconnected. And I think something like this, you think about those undrafted free agents, you think of the Keon Ellises, you think about even second round picks that may or may not have worked out and worked out in terms of being successful or not, but certainly had worked out or it maybe didn't with Sacramento. So it's part of the story. It's part of the journey. And it also helps show that they're leaving no stone unturned in terms of also leaving a good impression with your organization, because you bring them through a workout. How many times we hear about all the time, guys, when we're talking to players, yeah, they may have come through and maybe you didn't draft them, but that doesn't mean you don't get them later on in your organization as a free agent or a trade. And you just think about it. Zach LaVine worked out for the Kings. Steven Adams worked out for the Kings. Russell Westbrook worked out for the Kings. Damian Lillard, you can go down the line. And I know people use that as a punchline often. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it shouldn't be a punchline. Like that's not the way anyone should look at it at all. It's leaving an impression on these people that you might be able to get later on down the road. So I think if you're worried about the trolls and the haters, or even the punchline that could be out there that you missed on a draft, you drafted someone like Thomas Robinson, you're worried about the wrong thing.
Brenden?
Yeah, I don't have much else to add. I mean, I haven't gotten to experience draft workouts, pre-draft workouts since I've been covering the team, and yeah, I'm interested to see sort of what that looks like. Even from our side, just get a feel from these guys and a better understanding of the league in general for wherever they may end up down the line. But I'm excited to have that access and sort of see how this goes. And one of those things that I can't help but be curious. All right, is this a Scott Perry thing?
Well, to that point too, James, sorry to interrupt. Like, you get a lot of local guys that come through. I mean, Darian Williams is one of them, and he's a guy who, has a connection even to Mike Woodson, for example. So, or excuse me, not him. He doesn't have a connection to Mike Woodson. One of the players in that workout had a connection to Mike Woodson. Had played in Indiana. So,
one of them played with Isaac Jones, right, at Washington State.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just, these people have stories. One kid, like I said, Darian Williams from Sacramento, before going on to college, and obviously he rose. He becomes kind of a household name, and people got to know who he is, especially in the tournament. So yeah, I mean, these are important stories.
Okay, so here's my thought on pre-draft workouts. Number one, we went through a pandemic, and they shifted during the pandemic to Zoom, right? And the NBA supported the Zoom, and we would get like, hey, there's going to be here's a list of like 30 players, jump on a Zoom, and they're going to be for the next 3 days. You guys jump on when you want to interview somebody. Okay. Before that, there was this thing where the Kings would hold pre-draft workouts all the time, and they bring in 6 players every time. And it's usually like a couple of point guards, a couple of small forwards, and a couple of centers, and then a couple of shooting guards, a couple of small forwards, and a couple of power forwards. Like, they mixed it up, right? They tried to match players. I think famously years ago, Tobias Harris, like everywhere he went, matched up against Tyler Honeycutt, RIP Tyler Honeycutt. And they were like the small forward combo that kept getting matched up, and Tobias Harris outweighed Tyler Honeycutt by like almost 60 pounds. It was ridiculous. But pre-draft workout is cool because what Sean said, there are local ties. There are reasons for us to go out to the arena and sit there and run cameras and interview young prospects and players that you may never play for you. But there's always going to be a possibility that down the road that you're in the middle of some big trade and you need to match salaries. And you're like, hey, we've got a choice. You can take one of these 2 players. And the Kings are like, hey, we had a pre-draft workout with a guy like Lou Dort, who we thought the world of in a pre-draft workout, but we didn't take him because we didn't take him in the second round and we just made a mistake. But okay, we'll take him as opposed to some other guy that you've never met, you've never like had a conversation with, watched at the combine, interviewed, all that stuff. The other thing is, I don't understand free publicity, why you would turn down free publicity. This is a dog days of summer, and I don't know if anyone noticed, but the Golden State Warriors are still playing basketball. Like, your in-state rival that's 90 miles down the road is out there playing in the playoffs, and you want to turn the faucet off to local reporters coming in and writing stories about you, or putting your building and players and your coaching staff coaching like on the 6 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news. Like, I just don't get it. It's so short-sighted, and it goes right there. Just like put in a giant bundle with the use of second round picks. Like, the Monty and Wes like regime, they made so many basic mistakes that were dumb. And I know they don't want to hear that, but come on, man.
This the wine
Like,
talking, and the wine
why
gets
do
you
you
going, man.
why do you cut off something so basic as a pre-draft workout? There was I've said this a couple of times on the air, but when, like, you remember the Kyle Guy draft, right? Which is like 2019. The Kings held 99 workouts and didn't have a 99 prospects came through Sacramento,
And
and they didn't have a first round pick. No, they took 2. They took Justin James and they took Kyle Guy, and then I think they squandered a pick on the last pick or whatever. But that's what this is about. It's about learning the league. It's about learning the players in the league. And if you don't know the players, like, there's a potential for that player to be a legitimate player for you down the road, like a Keon Ellis or an Isaac Jones that go undrafted, but you didn't do your homework, and you didn't. Not only that, but you don't open your doors to the media. It's just, to me, it's so short-sighted.
The crazy part to me is, not to pile on, just playing devil's advocate. One would say, oh, the cloak of having that cloak up and not having access in there, you don't know who's coming and going. It's like one of those paranoid coaches who just think that no one's seen their plays before. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you can't come to practice. You can't just see all the trade secrets. It's like, oh, you mean the ones you literally put on tape? Like, you see these, like, they're, especially for basketball, it's just kind of wild that way. To me, anyone you have in your gym, you should want people to know about. Like, absolutely, you're doing your due diligence. Otherwise, you're like, oh, they must not be. What do they do over there? It adds more questions. Transparency is a good thing. You don't have to give it all away, but certainly have somebody in your gym before a draft. Like, what could go wrong?
Yeah, and also, like, I know, Brennan, you could probably name them. Like, during the Monty and West regime, we have, like, name the second round pick that's actually worked out at all. Like Jamias Ramsey, Robert Woodard,
Nemi.
Nemi is probably the best of the lot. Colby, yeah. Jalen Slauson.
Wasn't Jalen Slauson.
Like, the Kings have found better success in the undrafted free agent market than they have in actual second round picks. And that's great, because somebody there did a really good job, and I don't know if they're around or not. Sean, have you heard anything about Phil Jabor or no?
You don't have to laugh hard at these, Sean.
I'm sorry. Some of these comments get me. Andrew, well done. Crittenden, I think, is your last name. That's fantastic.
What do you got?
Go ahead, Andrew Crittenden.
We don't have to pin it. We don't.
You should pin it. That's a really good one. Especially the specific type of pencil. That was incredible. Well done, Andrew. For the audio listener, how many eyebrow pencils did Brenden use to draw his beard on his face?
Got it done.
Yeah.
What was the question, James? I apologize.
I'm just saying, like, all of this, like why are you hiding these guys? Like,
Well,
why not? Like, because but there are season tickets that are sold in May.
Rounders.
I don't know if it's fear, if it's paranoia. It's operating.
Laziness.
Maybe, I don't know. I can't answer that, but at any rate, onward, ever forward. We know that the pre-draft workouts are back. They don't have a first-round pick. They own number 42. We'll see what
42.
But can easily. But that's the thing. You got a whole trove of things that you can trade now. You can easily get back into the draft, get into the first round if you so choose. We'll see what happens. But anything can happen, and that's why you have to be prepared.
That's right. All right. Let's get to final thoughts. What do you got for us, Brenden Nunes?
I'm gonna go shave my beard instantly right after this. No,
I
don't.
Don't let them bully you.
I won't. I think they're hilarious. Keep them coming. It's a Velcro beard now, according to someone over here. Felipe, shout out. No, I mean, I'm gonna go typical Brenden final thoughts. I don't really have much. Shout out to Buddy Hield. 9 threes and 33 points in game 7. Watching that, like, what the hell is going on right now? Buddy's whole playoffs, actually, he was phenomenal. And I will say, I
game
think
7.
Back and forth.
What do you mean game 7?
Was it not game 7 against
last round?
Houston?
Oh, last. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. God, get it together, Sean.
Sorry, no, I'm in the focus of the Timberwolves now. I can't even remember what happened against.
Fair enough.
Houston.
But yeah, I mean, a little crazy. And I think that the back and forth between Jimmy, Buddy, and really the whole Warriors team and Buddy is
I accidentally
hilarious.
muted myself.
Wow. No, you did not.
Hey, we heard every word of that.
Yeah,
just
I
with an
heard
echo.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
That was a very
amazing.
old man moment from you there. Yeah, just a little crazy to me to see Buddy doing what he's doing, and it's a prime example of, find a guy that will fit into the right system, and all the shots that I think have more truth to them than maybe most people than how they may come off that they're taking at Buddy Hield. I think it stands out like their culture, I guess, that they have. And when if Buddy feels a type of way about something, he goes to somebody else in the org, they're probably telling him the same thing that everybody else is. And I think it's just an example of a culture really helping a guy. And obviously credit to Buddy in the process too.
Well, that and Buddy has been, the last couple of games has been horrible. Like, let's be honest. Like, he turned the ball over 4 times and hit 2 threes in the last game. No, 2 games in a row. He's been pretty bad. Sean, what do you got for final thoughts?
I'm kind of, I don't know. I've had a lot. Somebody had asked in the chat earlier why I cut you off on your rant about the I forget
second
what it was.
rounders.
No, that's another one. But in terms of the Sasha Vezenkov deal, and I was like, I just don't want James to lose his mind. We've heard these stories before. It's like, we can get on beyond that. So
it's really the McDaniels trade that sticks with me.
This is why I did it. This is why I brought it up.
I think you wrote about it pretty well, right?
I don't know. Like when you're looking around and you're wondering, why don't I have any second round picks? And then you squander so many of them. And you're like, boy, I would really like to go get Jake LaRavia, but they're asking for a second round pick, but my dumbass doesn't have one.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there you go.
How many you got now? There's quite a few now, right? No, there's not. It's like 4.
Well, they're missing their 28, 29, 30, and 31. They do have their 25. Well, they have the Bulls 25, their own 26 and 27, because those were held out and they couldn't trade them. And then they have a 32.
And the 2 Charlotte ones, right? The first will technically.
No, they're all gone already.
The Charlotte seconds?
Yeah, they use those for Valanciunas and
that's
Jake
right.
LaRavia.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it costs you your best player and your point guard.
Yeah,
to go get those second round picks.
Which, by the way, if they would have waited to trade De'Aaron, there's no way of knowing this, but it's very curious to just think, what would San Antonio do in their current position? Are they interested in De'Aaron still at this point? What does assets look like? And just kind of a interesting other timeline.
I'm intrigued to see if they trade De'Aaron this offseason. And wouldn't it be like a swift kick in the nuts if they get way more?
Trade him back to Sac.
If they get way more for De'Aaron Fox this offseason than what the Kings traded for him for.
Trade him back to Sac and he signs an extension.
Okay, final thoughts from James. Nick Kurtz just hit his first Major League Baseball home run. So
you said
shout
that
out
very well.
to the A's soon to be star first baseman.
He's enormous, by the way.
Once he hit his first one, he's going to start hitting him nonstop. You know who he looks like? He looks like Adam Dunn. He's just a big dude.
It's kind of funny because that's actually Mark Kotze used that same kind of comparison. I think he said a more athletic Adam Dunn.
Okay.
But yeah, he's a big dude, man. It was kind of fun this past weekend seeing the Yankees in town, Aaron Judge, and how big he is, and just to see these massive baseball players you're not used to seeing. It's like either you get these baseball players that are massive or just really short, and there's not a whole lot of in between sometimes.
Yeah, how was the Yankees experience? Because I know it was all the coverage was pretty Yankees centric from everyone.
Yeah, and it had to be.
The games were too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, It was 2-1. The A's kicked the crap out of them on Saturday.
Saturday was a really fun experience because they came back, and Kotze made a big point of talking about how hard the clubhouse took that first game and wanting to show that they were better than that. And then same kind of result happens on Sunday. Luis Severino having some problems in Sacramento for sure, getting adjusted.
Like
but
he's had problems since he got here.
Well,
he's better on the road.
Yeah,
I think that's the problem. You keep talking about it; it's going to keep happening.
He always asked about it. People are going to ask. But
my favorite was when the Mets came into town. He's like, actually, I wanted to stay there for less money, but they wouldn't give it to me. He's been saying a lot of things.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, just completely objectively going in there just to cover baseball and see Major League Baseball in Sacramento is still great. I mean, it is a interesting experience to be sure. I mean, I think fans will definitely enjoy it because the ball sure gets out of the yard, and it's going to be very hitter friendly. But yeah, man, it was fun. I mean, there was a ton of Yankee fans. Aaron Judge playing back in the hometown for the first time as a major leaguer is pretty special when you're arguably the best player in baseball, certainly the best in the American League, and God, he left town hitting 409. That's wild.
That's crazy. Yeah. He's so good right now. It's absolutely off the charts. Like, he leads the league in hits, runs, home runs, RBI, batting average, OPS, slugging percentage, like you name it, he leads the league. It's wild. But hey, I'm excited to see Jacob Wilson, who tonight has 2 home runs and who's batting like almost 370 as a rookie. The A's have a bunch of talent, and they're crushing the Dodgers. They're up 9-1 right now. Absolutely destroying the Dodgers.
Love to see it.
Yeah, I'm gonna run him around my house like doing the lawnmower, like whatever, Kirk Gibson. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's see. Do we have anything else to cover? I want to get to, before we get out of here. There are 2. Benjamin asked a quick question. John, Sacramento, any chance? What do you guys got?
I would. Yeah, I mean, if I'm the Kings, I'd be all for it. But if I'm the Memphis Grizzlies, I'm probably not trading him to any team in the West, and I'm probably not trading him at all.
Brenden?
Yeah, I mean, it's all price dependent, obviously, but I definitely think it's something the Kings should entertain. And if Memphis doesn't go in that direction, like say if there's a world where Jaren Jackson is on the table, I think that's something they should look at as well. But
James' favorite player.
I mean, I would say
I'm not a fan of him, but perfect fit next to Domas.
He's one of those rare 4s that stretch the floor and protect the paint.
And who averages 5 rebounds a game, which is fine because you got the best rebounder in the game.
There you go.
Yeah, it's okay that he's a horrible rebounder. But he does block shots. He does hit threes, although it looks like he's a trebuchet out there.
Even though, funnily enough, that sounds exactly like Miles Turner. But
yeah, no, it's true. I just think the Kings, at one point had guards that probably would have been more advantageous. Not now. And then the other one is what triggers a trade exception? A trade exception, Diaz man racing, is basically when you match up salaries. So a trade is never just very seldom is it one player for one player and equal salary. So if you trade a $25 million player for an $18 million player, the team that sends out the $18 million player basically creates a $7 million trade exception, which is the equivalent of a coupon, like that. We've talked about this, that you can use at a later date. They're only good for 1 year, but then you can use that. And the NBA has 2 different types of trades, simultaneous and a non-simultaneous trade. A simultaneous trade happens all at one time. A non-simultaneous trade happens over the course of a season. And a trade can keep extending out. So you could trade. So say you create that $7 million trade exception, you could trade that $7 million trade exception for a $4 million player, and then the other team now creates a $3 million trade exception.
I can't look at Sean when I'm reading comments, man.
What are the
guys
comments
gonna crack me up?
So
nothing.
good.
It's not
all right. Lastly,
someone asked, would I trade Monk for Ja? Yeah, is it straight up? Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's kind of a no-brainer.
Well, yeah, that and throw in DeMar DeRozan to match salaries and 2 first-round picks.
Kuminga to Sacramento? Question mark. Probably not.
What is, dude, Kuminga, talk about just totally screwing yourself. I mean, he didn't help himself in all the years leading up to it, too. But going into a contract year and then not getting played in the postseason is just so tough. And then he does get played and did all right, I guess. But
well, when he does get played, he looks like 23-year-old DeMar DeRozan, right? It's just like all iso ball, and he's very good at what he does. It's just that's not their style of play. And that's not to say that Kuminga is a bad player. It's just it's kind of like Davion Mitchell. Like you fit really well in the East Coast and in Eastern Conference. You don't fit really well in the West. Like it's just really tough.
Player. I don't know.
He might be a bad player, but he can score a bucket.
Definitely can. Yeah.
Okay, I think
yes, I am ready for Bottle Rock. Somebody who had asked, can't wait. Started the show by saying, I am in my, it's senioritis. I can't wait to get to Bottle Rock.
Okay,
this is the section of the show where James continues to try to close, and Sean just keeps reading comments.
I'm gonna ask Sean, like Bottle Rock, but like at the same time, like you've been there before. Like it's always, I guess it's always a little bit different, right?
No, well, yes, the lineup's always different, but you have to understand, I don't care what the lineup is. Napa in Memorial Day at that time of for this time of year, based on I look forward to this. This is my favorite thing every single year. It is just vibes. It is just a completely, I do not care I cannot dance for Devin asking me questions. I cannot dance. I would never dance. I do that. You ever see Hitch? I do that little live in my lane. That's what I do. Just nod the head. No, I can't wait. It's just, if you've never been, you'll get it. It's bougie Coachella. It's not like grimy, dirty stuff. It's not like that. It's not like you're camping. It's just literally just, you go hang out. It's so much fun.
Weren't there Kings guys out there last year?
Yeah, they had Domas and Kevin Huerter out there on the culinary stage. Domas might be back there. He's got his wine. I would kind of expect to see some sort of Domantas Sabonis representation. Serena Williams going to be on the culinary stage. There's Ken Griffey Jr. is going to be at the culinary stage. So nice. If you're into the whole food stuff, someone mentioned Chef Morimoto. Oh, look at Brenden wearing the Griffey Jr. shirt.
I need to head out there and check out Coachella. Check out Bottle Rock.
Rock,
yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. It's so close too. It seems like it'd be fun.
I sleep in my own bed every single night. Take a shuttle down there, take a shuttle back. Great.
Okay, so last question on this, Sean. How do you have senioritis when you just started your new job?
No, because it's yes, because I didn't get like a vacation in between. Really, I got a few days off, which was nice. But you end up stepping right into. It's not because of the work. It's just for me, NBA season's kind of coming to the end. It's the kind of the kickstart of summer for me. So I get to take an extended break, and I do it at Bottle Rock. So I see senioritis because I'm just looking forward to it so much.
The A's just got another homer. Look at that. Who is that?
Somebody
rounding the bases?
Someone didn't like I don't like the Dodgers.
And Duhar, it's 10-1. There it is. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the King Speed podcast. We are, of course, brought to you by Blue Wire and Underdog Fantasy. If you want to jump on board with Underdog, use a promo code KingsBeat, all one word. We're going to continue all the way through summer. We're going to keep doing this. That's kind of the way it goes. We're a little sporadic, erratic. I don't know how you want to but mostly it's because we all have a lot going on and we're trying to match schedules and everything else. So thanks for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up button if you don't mind. This is almost a 2-hour podcast. I blame Sean. I'm
blaming you this time. It's usually Sean. This one might have been you.
You kept disappearing.
I did as well. Yeah.
Brenden, you disappeared like 4 times. I don't know.
On my end, it only happened twice, so we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. And then of course Sean kept taking questions from the audience. So
which is
all
what you
right.
should do
How
during
dare
a
you.
live show. These
Okay.
people have questions.
Well, thanks for tuning in,
Like
everyone.
my vacation time. What the hell does my no? You go from one company, they pay you out. You have to start all over again.
I think Devin is debating changing jobs.
Yeah, he's really looking into it.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. No, they don't roll over.
No,
Yeah.
unless you're going within company, like if Ford owns the dealership and you go from one dealership to the next.
Okay.
Way to look at it. Yeah.
That's one way to look at it. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Again, hit the thumbs up on the way out the door. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next week. We'll have another crazy show where we discuss probably a couple of draft prospects that may or may not ever be in Sacramento and maybe some new assistant coaches. So for KCRA 3's Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, if that still exists. I am James Hammond, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you soon.